let's get into a little serious topic. I haven't done this in a while. I don't know if I'll do a 10 things I love about this game because it would just be completely redundant bullshit. 10 things I hate about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge game that came out. I want to make it very clear. When I first saw this game, I was extremely skeptical. Because considering that .emu also worked on Streets of Rage 4, I was extremely worried that they were going to pull the same bullshit that they did with Streets of Rage 4. They say they're huge fans of Streets of Rage, but they only like 2, and they hate 3, but they put in shit that makes Streets of Rage 2 bullshit look even more annoying. In short, while it is a more complex beat-em-up, it might as well be Devil May Cry meets Streets of Rage. And you know how I feel about games that try to imitate Devil May Cry. This game does do a much better job of being a much more traditional beat-em-up, while having some newer things to keep it a little more fleshed out, and not being completely monotonous. Yes, the game's pixel art is gorgeous. It also has... They are also behind Scott Pilgrim, which is also a very good game. I might actually start playing it again, actually, because... While I do think this is a good game, after playing it, and I decided to buy it, because God forbid you can't actually say anything about the game unless you directly support developers or anything, this game has some problems. The first thing I want to talk about is actually the thing that kind of annoys me the most about the game, although it does factor into the other things in the game later on. So let's talk about the Super Meter mechanic. I have been noticing how this thing works, and I didn't really start using it until Stage 3, which is where I think the hardest boss in the game is, besides Stage 12, which is what I'm currently at right now. There is a mechanic in this game in which you can build up your Super Meter, kind of like in most fighting games, particularly like Marvel vs. Capcom. But here's the way how the game handles its Super Meter. So, when you're going through story mode, you get, I believe, 2 bars by default. You can unlock a third one later on when you've leveled up, which I'll talk about that later too. If you get hit before you fill up 1 meter, you lose it entirely, which makes no sense. And then I noticed as I filled it up, I didn't seem to lose anything. But apparently with how this game works, if you fill up a whole level of super, you only lose the meter that you are currently building, and only then will you keep it until you use it or lose it due to losing a life. Alexa, how do I commit suicide? There is also another mechanic, which I probably should have looked at the how to play section, because the game actually does kind of explain some of the mechanics in there that are actually important. The game's taunt button, which pushed and successfully wait a couple seconds, albeit very vulnerable, you will gain a whole meter, which might seem a little contrived, except this shit works anytime, anywhere. You can use it during boss fights, you can use it after you clear a section of enemies. There is zero reason not to use the taunt, because it completely fills your super meter after a couple of seconds. And then later on, when you progress enough power levels, you will then have the ability to unlock a third meter, in which you can either spend more meter to use super moves, or enter radical mode, or as I'm just going to call it, double trigger, because I'm on a DMC spree, and you get a pretty big damage boost that lasts for quite a while, actually. But here's the thing to understand with this double trigger. If you manage to die while you have this thing active, you still have this when you respawn, which makes no sense. In what beat 'em up, especially an old game like this, where you enter double trigger, die, respawn, and still have double trigger. This makes no sense. It even drains when you're during a cutscene, so it makes no sense to activate it before it, which makes 0 sense. There's also the Pride Pizza, which essentially gives you infinite super, but it also makes it so that when you use the double trigger, it also depletes. So what is the point of Pride Pizza? I've been actually reading comments on the Steam boards because I figure why not, and people are complaining this is actually a pretty broken mechanic. I didn't really think too much of it because, okay, it's just a regular super move, but then the way you build meter makes sense. You know, you attack enemies and you fill it, but if you get hit before you reach a level, it depletes, but you can taunt to get there immediately, and there's no repercussions besides not being able to move, So meter management is pretty much entirely pointless. And before anyone says it, I'm playing in the hard difficulty, and I've been mainly using Splinter, because there's a specific achievement where you beat a boss as Splinter. I think it's the Rat King. That's, I'm guessing it's something to do with the 80s show, which I'm guessing there's a lot of ties to, but I'm not going to get into that, because it's the fucking game, and I don't care about the outside material. The game's and the game's alone, just like in my Sonic rant. Meter management is completely pointless. It also doesn't help that when you use a super, the game freezes for some reason. It kind of makes sense in single player, but in multiplayer, unless it's a fighting game, then that's just dumb. And I'm pretty sure this is also a thing in Streets of Rage 4, but I don't think people get mad about that because it's Streets of Rage 4, and God forbid you have anything critical to say about it. The super meter mechanic is dumb. I can't believe the same people who made Streets of Rage 4 has made an infinitely worse super meter. Yes, I know I'm ranted about Sonic Origins being $40, but that's a collection of games that are $40 for 30-year-old Sonic games. Yeah, I know it turned 31, I don't give a shit. This is a $25 game that doesn't really have anything to offer beyond a story mode in which you level up your characters, kind of like Scott Pilgrim, but I'll give it that it's not as annoying, because it doesn't do the Castle Crashes bullshit, but it is still annoying that there's not really much replay value, unless you want to go through arcade mode, which is the more traditional mode, which I thought was going to be something like Contra Hardcore Uprising. Seriously, when the fuck is the game coming out to PC? Arc System Works, for the love of God, please bring this game to the fucking PC. Plus, after this shitstorm, there was that fucking Contra game that claims he worked by the same dude who worked on Shattered Soldier. I think we're all owed a much better Contra game. Or have Pseudo HCMR make one for you. They clearly got it down. This game doesn't have a lot of replay value, which is kind of a problem. I know this kind of worked for older arcade ports back in the day, but this is a $25 game that's advertised as the biggest game of the year, and people have been calling it game of the year. I honestly say that even Streets of Rage 4, at least in its launch state, has a lot more replay value. You know, grinding the lifetime points to unlock more characters, the grading system which encourages you to play better. I can see a game like that having much more replay value. This game is a much more traditional pick-up and play thing, but for $25, I just don't think it's worth the asking price, to be honest. Yeah, I know they gotta get paid somehow, but $25 for a game doesn't really have a lot of stuff going on. It's just kind of shitty. You know, people praise in this game like, oh, look at this little detail from the 80s cartoon. Oh. It just seems a little contrived to me that a game like this, it's being called Game of the Year compared to fucking Elden Ring. The less said about that, the better. Just seems a little weird that a game that's worth the same price as Streets of Rage 4, and yet has nowhere near as much replay value compared to that game. And even though I don't care for something like Streets of Rage 4, or even, dare I say, Modern Doom, I could see those games having replay value. It's just not for me. But if I'm expected to pay $25 for a game that has about as much replay value as the old Turtles arcade games, I'll just play those old-ass Turtles arcade games. Yeah, it might look better, you can play and everything, but if it offers the same content from the 90s, then fuck it. Games have progressed since then. You don't have to bring every archaic formula back. It's dumb. And speaking of dumb, yes, the difficulty design in this game is dumb. Now, I haven't played the older Turtle games in a while, but I'm pretty sure the enemies didn't deal absurd amounts of damage and not really doing anything else. Usually these beat-em-ups tend to add in extra enemies and such and making the AI smarter, but it seems all they really did is just make the enemies deal more damage, and you're pretty much encouraged to raise their power level so you get extra lives, because in the story mode, you do have lives tied to each stage, but not by difficulty, and they're not that long, so I'll allow it. But that third stage with the fucking Turtleizer is probably some of the most bullshit I've seen to beat him up in a long time. I'm sure someone will say, oh, but the Rat King in Turtles in Time wasn't that bad, or some other fucking flying vehicle boss, whatever the fuck. There doesn't seem to be really a point in playing on Gnarly anyway, because all it does, it just makes the enemies hit harder. You think that these people who pretty much made Streets of Rage 4 would understand that just giving enemies ridiculous damage increases would call it a day. They're supposed to fight smarter, not harder. That's what lazy games do nowadays. The AI doesn't really fight smarter, just harder and sometimes bullshit. And they could have done a much better job with this. But also with difficulty, there's also one other thing I wanted to mention. This game, for a reason, if you want to change the difficulty in the story mode, you have to start a new game. Not even Scout Pilgrim did this bullshit. What the fuck was Tribute and .emu thinking? Remember when video games just used to make enemies deal more damage and make them bullet sponges or whatever? That seems to be what this game has gone for. And maybe it's just my ignorance, but that's kind of the vibes that I'm getting. And if I'm wrong, I'll gladly take the L on that one. This one is kind of a minor nitpick, but considering that this game takes a lot of assets from Turtles in Time in the original arcade game, why couldn't it have been a different campaign where you play through a remix version of those but using the same enemies from there? You clearly fight the Stone Soldiers later on, stage 12. You could have had the levels where you fight those dudes and then fight the alligator boss later on. I'm not saying to have to completely recreate the boss and the fight exactly the same. All I'm saying is just have you fight the bosses from the original games in the same engine. Mega Man Power Up is the exact same thing. You have all these wonderful characters. The bosses are really well done. What is so wrong with just letting you fight Baxter Stockman at the end of the first stage, like in Turtles in Time? You clearly have the assets. Yeah, even if you took the same fight or whatever, it'd still be kind of a cool little throwback, but I guess not. This would have been a really cool way of having the game give some extra replay value, but again, this is just a minor nitpick. The developers really seem to give a lot of attention to this, but only having one real roadmap is kind of shitty in my opinion. Maybe some things would be possible, like Krang's laser beams of doom or whatever, but it does feel kind of shitty that the game takes a lot of assets from Turtles in Time and the original arcade game, or even the NES beat 'em up, which is actually good. Not the one that's based on the sequel to the shitty NES game that is actually the arcade game that's actually better. What the fuck? You're dumb. Speaking of minor nitpicks, this is another one, but what is the point of the collectibles and challenges? I get that you get extra points, but if you know how to farm them, they're not really that interesting. They might as well be the fucking red rings from Sonic 4 Episode 2, or even the intel in Modern Warfare 2 and onwards. Yeah, I know I'm comparing different games, but what happened to collectibles actually having purpose? This doesn't seem to really give purpose, especially if you already are maxed out like I am. These honestly make no sense. I don't have anything else to say about the collectibles. They're stupid, and they don't add actual replay value. Just meaningless collectibles that add nothing to the game. Also, thank you, Tribute and .emu, for reintroducing me to Irma. I now have something interesting to look at. God damn. Also, she's a much better waifu than April. Eat it, bitches. This one is actually not a nitpick. Why is there no training mode in this? You have the Turtles lair, and yet you can't even practice against dummy characters or anything. You can't even set up something which Donatello is clothed the master of unlocking, the master of technology, and yet you can't simulate battles or some shit? What the crap? There's not even another mode as well, which I'll talk about in a second, where you can actually practice this stuff. The game shows you a how to play section, but a game like this, which something even Mega Man 11 did, not only shows you a visual demonstration, but an actual on-hands demonstration where you can get a feel for the controls. How do you mess this up? And this isn't a fucking SNK arcade game where you can actually disable that shit or just push one button, you're done. You have to do this every single time. You mean to tell me there couldn't be an option in the options menu to where you can disable after the first time or some shit? How fucking dumb are Tribute and .emu? What the crap? There should have been a training mode. There should have been some sparring mode over the fuck. They should have fixed the how to play section. This is unacceptable. Why the hell is there no competitive versus mode? I know this is something that was a throwaway mode in the SNES version of Turtles in Time. Turtles in Time, which was only released in the Super Nintendo. Wait, what? You mean to tell me you have a pretty decent game like this, and yet there's no competitive mode? It doesn't even to be anything like a super balanced version or anything like in Phantom Breakers Battlegrounds, or even something like Scout Pilgrim was a completely shitty DLC, now ruined thanks to Ubisoft's greediness. But come on. This was a pretty cool feature even in that game that was only on the Super Nintendo. There's not even a time attack mode or even a boss rush. What the fuck? How can you have a game with decent boss fights and have a boss rush? You think beat-em-ups nowadays would have something like this, but I guess not. Or even an endless mode. There's just nothing. There's absolutely no real replay value besides story and arcade. Not even anything else besides the main feature of the game, which I'll talk about a little later, because I'm actually going a pretty big rant about that. No side modes? Are you kidding? What the fuck, Tribute and .emu? You're dumb. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention on the extra modes thing. Why the hell are the fucking alternate colors? This is something that Turtles in Time had in the Super Nintendo. The comic version and the one from the cartoon. You mean to tell me .emu couldn't even bother adding in recolors and shit? I mean, I don't expect extra playable characters, even though those 4 frogs you rescue would be nice. But at least no alternate colors? Are you kidding me? This could be considered a minor nitpick, but it really isn't. The visuals and sound effects are fucking dumb. First of all, the HUD is poorly optimized. The HUD is so goddamn small, I can't even tell half the time. And the visuals are fucking monotonous too. Just look at this shit. It is extremely dull. I know it's a minor nitpick, but this one isn't. The enemies, when they blow up, it is not even satisfying. It just looks like a fucking, that GIF, whatever explosion. The enemies supposed to fucking explode, son. Explode. Everyone likes explosions, yet these aren't explosions. They're just fancy particle effects. And also, speaking of lives, how the fuck can he mess up the lives counter? I get that this is the game that has 1 is the last life, but you seriously couldn't tell me he couldn't even get this shit right?
This is not working the way I planned.
Seriously, this is some poorly optimized gameplay. Please fix this shit. You shouldn't even have to fix it, because it should have been like the originals at least. At least in terms of how the fucking live system was counted down. It is so obnoxious. Okay, this one will absolutely be a minor nitpick, but the next one will not. The power level is fucking stupid, at least in the story mode, because the more points you earn, the more experience you get. It might as well be a light level up system. The only level I've seen to actually find a level that actually does this okay is in the 3rd level, which is the one that I hate. Because the stupid fucking boss with the stupid fucking constant hitboxes. And no, you can't roll because I can't roll ADP. This isn't Dark Souls 2, you stupid bitch-ass motherfucker. Power levels are fucking stupid. There's 10 of them, and when you reach 2,000 points, that's it. The scoring system has no purpose. They don't even cap or anything. It's just, it's kind of like the XP in Scout Pilgrim. Once you reach level 16 in that game, you're pretty much done. I mean, sure you can reset your progress, but what fun is that? Should have been an option like in the arcade where we actually start with everything unlocked or whatever, but no. Just an interesting system, but poorly made. And speaking of, this is going to be the last point, because this is going to probably be the longest section besides the first one. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Let us bring forth the one thing that everyone in the motherfucking talked about, but couldn't even get right. Yes, the crossplay. The one thing that everyone was creaming their pants over. This is the biggest feature of the game, and yet they completely screwed it up. I don't know how it works on console, but for people who gush about how wonderful PCs are, I'm going to take a jab at them this time. How the fuck can you tell me a game on PC requires the Epic Game Store when it's being sold on Steam? That shit makes zero sense. I'm sure it's on Epic Game Store, but who gives a shit? Unless it's Fortnite, Rocket League, now fucking Fall Guys for some reason, or even the better out of the 4, Unreal Tournament, I don't give a shit. Why the fuck do you need an Epic Games account to do crossplay when you bought the shit on Steam? I'm not even going to go into the fact that when you get the game through Game Pass, the saves are completely fucked. This is why I don't fuck with Game Pass, because it completely ruins the saves for the games you're trying to play. It was also on a rotary basis. Once you're done with it, once the game leaves Game Pass, you're pretty much fucked by anyway. Even when you probably buy the game, your saves will probably be screwed. I might be wrong on that, but I've read up stories about how Game Pass saves are very much different compared to the games you actually bought as a license or some shit. I guess when they give it to you for free, they have no obligations to make sure your saves are working, but only if you buy it and don't lose your account, then your saves will work. Thanks, corporations. You know how to make my bed rock. Horrible reference aside. Yeah, the crossplay is fucking stupid. Seriously, I played matches in Apex that have much better fucking crossplay features than this shit. How can you tell me a 6-player co-op game can have such horrible online practices? Game of the year, though, am I right? Get out of here. My god, these people are fucking stupid. Everyone on Twitter was going how this game is perfect, 10 out of 10, best game of all time, and yet the one thing that everyone wants is better on blind play, fucking rollback or GTFO. Rant about that coming soon, too. I'm actually going to work on that still. Maybe I'll just release the one I have now. Anyway, self-plugs aside,
You're dumb.
how the fuck can you give a game a 10 out of 10 when it has fucking shitty-ass crossplay? Especially on PC that everyone supposedly plays on now. Y'all a bunch of retarded motherfuckers, I swear. Anyway, I had to get the summer wheeze. A lot of snowflakes in my door. Because you know what they say, there's too many snowflakes and not enough snow wheeze to exterminate those motherfuckers. Because I said a naughty word on the internet in 2022. Oh my god, how fucking edgy of you, bro. Also, I didn't bring up the fact that the characters blatantly steal moves because that would just be pure autism if I were to rant about that. Even though I firmly believe the Turtles are much more interesting than having to take moves blatantly taken from other fighting games and calling a game of the year. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I'm gonna go buy some more summer weaves in the event that I piss someone off on the internet. I will see you all next file. Thanks for watching, and take care.